So we're going to be starting off with plying these. Yeah, I spun them up on these over the weekend, or no, over the week is when I did it. And I don't know, they spun up okay. I made some poor choices, perhaps, in terms of what, because I blended it with some sort of very short stapled, dusty. I don't actually have any idea what it was. It was just sitting in a scrap bin. No label, obviously. And I didn't think that it. No label, obviously. And I didn't think that it would be as difficult and as dusty as it was. It was incredibly difficult. The main difficulty was just crafting it evenly. It was quite a challenge. But I think two-plying it will be fine. I was able to draft the second one that I spun somewhat more evenly. But I drafted it first and that helped. Probably should like all of it first. Most likely I will next time. So I do have a whole other batt that I haven't spun anything of. And that one I know also is going to have the same problem because it has the same, it has that same white wool. So I'm hoping this will spin up fairly nicely. There's not any particular purpose to this wool other than staff. So I'll probably be doing more of these. But I also want to focus on my, I don't know, do it when I feel like it. They're not like a huge priority because giving away bits of not too difficult. It's not too difficult if you know anybody who likes to blend wool, and I have quite a few. So should be fine. But it is also, there's something really quite satisfying about spinning something that's got like random colors. Especially when you're the one who got to make arrangement of colors. It feels a little bit more artistic. It's definitely a different sort of spin than if you're even if it's a nice color, you make that color yourself. It's definitely different. Base. So the only reason I actually ended up making all those cotton pins with the remainder of my cotton, I wasn't planning on doing that. I was planning on working with the new stuff when it came out. But I was finishing spinning these singles this morning. At some point, I managed to massively misplace one of the parts. Like you kind of have to totally disassemble it every time you change the bobbin. And I changed the bobbin in classic ADHD fashion. It sort of just disappeared off the face of the earth for several hours, even though I kept periodically like getting up to look for it. That apart, shook out everything, like took everything off my bed to make sure that's where it was. Went through my bag of knitting needles because that's also where the bobbins were. And after I finished a couple other projects, I just randomly found it sitting in the middle of my bed. I have no idea how I could possibly have been searching all those multiple times. But yeah, it was basically just a diversion because I wanted something to within a spinning move or something. So it happens to me a lot if I'm being honest. I'll lose a trip J hook or that I like in the size that I need, and then I just magically reappears in a very unlikely spot that I know I already checked. I do have a fan currently plugged in my apartment, so if it was too loud, I mean, I can turn it down if nothing else. But it seems like interference isn't usually picked up too strongly, so I'm hoping it's fine. I really thought, for some reason, I should have been better, but I really thought that I was going to end up with sort of light purple batt as a result of putting dark purple and white on the blending board. Like, there's other colors in there, but it's a purple purple, which is, in retrospect, what I always get. I'm not quite sure why I thought I would get something else. Maybe that just means it's been over too long. Like, there are ways to have blended these fibers and have gotten the light. It's just the blending board is not one of those ways. You really just need to use hand cards. You could maybe do it on the blending board. Do that tool and a lot of time. But it would be about as effective as mixing it with your hands, which is not very effective. It's doable, but it's very slow. But I am liking the way that this is. It's sort of like pastel, but it's streaks. It's not something that really resembles the color white. It is evening out for the most part. Getting thin spots. Like both plies will have a thin spot in the same area. It's not super consistent, but it should be usable, which is good because the first problem that I would not have been usable. Like the rest of it will. Fill up the whole bottom. But I'm like halfway through the fiber, about halfway through the bottom. Should fill it in. It's only about 25 grams, so just slightly, which is really not a lot of fiber. It's not going to be enough for like a hat or anything like that, I don't think. It's going to be a little bit of that. I feel like a lot of these spin, I just turn into blanket squares anyway. And I like making blanket squares. Systems. moves here. I'm pretty much exclusively spinning in a rocking chair. I only own 2 chairs that aren't wheelchairs because my apartment is absolutely tiny and I can't sit in chairs anyway. So I basically have one armchair for my cat and one rocking chair for me. And it is very difficult to spin on a treadle wheel while sitting in a rocking chair. I don't think it's the energy effective way to do it, and I suspect that slightly rocking back and forth with each treadle is the. But it's also like my chairs around. That's armchair is not really this gym. I'd have to change some things though. But then also, if I don't spin in this chair, it's like there's kind of no point in me having it because I'm never ever going to sit in it otherwise. And it's a really nice rocking chair. It's an antique that I got at a steep discount at the thrift store. Just for what's happening here. So, I really want to give it but, not great. It's also not really perfect. It's probably fine for this. But it certainly lasts me for this short. It's going to be a somewhat shorter stream today. I don't actually have much of a clue how long the continent blooms are going to take this time. There's 6 of them, which is a lot, but also not a lot because I plan on spinning them for 6. They probably won't last that long. So, I don't know. Probably an hour and a half. That's about what I feel like doing. Plus, I've got bread kind of rising. It's still on the stretch and fold stage, but it's also technically rising. It's start to rise. And I've got some holistic stuff like that. I was hanging out with one of my coworkers last night. He's also a friend. And stuff. And I came to the realization that I kind of don't have like any hobbies or source of fun outside of fireworks. Like I have things that I can watch shows or TV on. I have like the ability to play games. I have various things like that. I have music. Just the only thing I ever actually feel like doing is swimming or knitting or crocheting. Or very occasionally playing Minecraft. I don't know what that says about me, but I'm having fun. Who cares? I think having fun in my career really helps. I spend pretty much all day at work doing some kind of craft, and it's really good to learn to do something where I can use my hands. But like, yeah, I do that all day at work, and I do that each day on the bus to get to work. And when I get home, I continue doing that. Just sometimes. And I like it. I feel like that it results in stuff that somewhat. also just fundamentally one of those people who always needs to be doing something with my hands. It's not my stuff. When I was a kid, I did constantly, and I did a lot. And I broke a lot of things on accident. Because I've always been picking stuff up to pick it up and then it with my arms and through the base. But I was pretty good at very clumsy, so you can probably imagine how that goes. So this is definitely an upgrade in terms of breaking this stuff. It's pretty hard to break forever. I've broken a couple of many needles, but none since I realized that my tension is way too tight to be using DPMs to attacks. Once I fix that, just got metal DPMs. Break spindles for sure, but other than spindles, not much. We're reaching the end of these two bobbins. I have a tiny bit bobbin as well. So I just have that bobbin left. I'm just going to make a quick 5 brace and finish it. Quite a bit faster than I thought. It's only been about 15 minutes. That's something that I really like about these little, like, half-ounce bobbins for my E-spinner. Is that you fill them up really quick and then they also fly really quick. So you've just got a sort of artificially inflated sense of progress, which is usually not a bad thing. I don't need any slips. And all the ones that I've been making, it's fun for convey to people, like to strangers that I'm not going to meet, but also listen. This is happening, so I just keep using washable. Then I kind of just run out of things to do with there's a way to do an Andean Plying bracelet where it's not that, where you don't like remove the yarn from your hands. You don't break the yarn. There we go. You don't break the yarn, and you can just wrap it anyway. And then every single time I try and do it, I've forgotten how to do it, and then I just have to sit there and kind of not yarn for a few minutes. This is faster than usual. It's appreciated. Sort of a nice blend with Usually I don't have the overhead lights on, so I don't think you'd typically be able to see like any of the details of anything. Just this once I do have it on. And I also have as well. I was worried that the self-slide part might be. No, this is kind of the most hidden part. It's the very last bit I started, and by then, I had that's what happened. The slubs and the hopefully that means that the other path is. Pull this off so I can I can't see the colors too well. It's sort of coming across as more brown, but it is purple. I think it's gonna soften up pretty well. It's currently like a little bit scratchy. Sorry, word, but it's not really soft. It feels like once it relaxes, it will actually be like the skin soft. That would be nice. I'm curious what the yardage is going to be on this one. Random guess is 150. Wow. Okay, this is I'm revising my guess. 80 yards? Okay. It's 34 strands and it's a tuning. Nitty knots. That is 68 yards. So a little bit shy of 150. That's fine. 150 is too small to do anything with anyway. Just wait. 150 is too small to do anything with anyway. Just wait. Here it is, though. I think it's pretty nice. The color's a lot more than I thought it would. Even when I was blending it, I planned to make a light purple. I didn't think I would love it that much. And I was spinning it and realized immediately this I was really gonna hate the finished product. But I don't. I like it. I think it's got, like, honestly, the sort of variations from the dark purple, and when there's a lot of it, like it's quite dark and it's quite purple. It's purple. And it's kind of pretty. Yeah, there's that. I'll wash that later. Now we're on to the cotton. Like I said, I carded these earlier, and I am very much still figuring out how to card cotton, actual cotton cards. There's definitely a learning curve. It's not too steep, but the first couple of these are probably going to be pretty rough for multiple reasons. One being that I'm like, when I was working on the green part, I still had zero idea what the proper technique was for actually doing it. And then the other being that I found I just could not open up with dyed cotton, which is a little worrying. It might mean that I end up spinning a whole bunch of undyed white cotton and then dye it as yarn. I don't really want to do that, but I might have to. I'll probably do some experiments before I really commit to anything, because I didn't dye these like with cotton mordants or anything like that. This was just a wool bath that I tossed the cotton into. So we'll have to see, but I gotta start spinning them anyway. The goal is a fairly thick, like maybe DK weight, 2-ply DK weight, or worsted even. I don't know, something around there. I want to go for something substantial enough to make a bag out of it and then see how it wears. I am really curious how this stuff is going to wear. I haven't spun enough thick cotton. Any idea how hand spun cotton wears when it's not very fine. So I'll have to see. But I think I'll start with the dyed cotton anyway, because I might. I also used a variety of different techniques, just trying to figure out what was easiest, like what was the easiest way to card it. And one of these green ones is actually trying to like roll it the opposite way that you would roll anything off of hand cards. And I almost had to like pull it all off and recomb all of it, or recard all of it, because I felt so badly trying to do that. I wonder if that's a lesson that I already learned when I was first learning how to. Because it was so obvious not to do that. Anyway. I kind of enjoy about learning new, slightly more advanced download something you are really comfortable with is that you continually relearn the basics. It turns out you don't necessarily know the basics, even though you've been doing them for years. That has been my experience. I thought this was going to be more difficult. Oh, there's the difficulty. Never mind. It's because I was working with pre-drafted fiber. Yeah, this is rough. All right. Let me just patch it to the bottom. I'm okay with this not turning out particularly. Not even an ounce, probably 10 grams, like a third of an ounce. But it's fine if it ends up terrible, but I would prefer if it doesn't. I would prefer if it works. Or at least if it's like by the end of it. Okay. I'm gonna spin it. What is that? Counterclockwise? I think so. The opposite way that I usually. I'm kind of curious if I'll actually notice much of a difference spinning it one way versus spinning it the other way. Probably never have with problems because in the past I just had enough problems spinning already. I wasn't good on that. But geez, I shouldn't tempt on this one either. Okay, a couple of adjustments are already necessary. I need to put this on the bigger wheel so that I don't add twist to it quite as fast. I need more time to draft it. Let's see. The other thing about moving it to lower twist wheel is that if you have a lot of twist behind your fingers, it sort of prompts you to, at least it prompts me to, and I notice it every single time. So I'm hoping that not having that will also help. This is so lumpy. It's not working at all. I'm hoping that is a very bad prep job on it. It's also possible that this is one of the ones that I kept them in order, like all the way up until I brought them. Just pick them up and jumble them. So. This is exactly why I started. I'm going to go up from here. That's how you keep yourself motivated. Cotton needing quite a lot of twists to stay together. It's, increasingly less true the thicker you spin it. But going against all my very bad. Another thing about cotton that I've noticed, like as something very different from wool, is that I feel like when you ply wool, like you sort of get the sum of its parts in terms of the size of the diameter of the finished yarn. Like if you have, two strands next to each other, it's just gonna look like two strands. That's about the size it will be, and that's also true once it's plied. But because cotton doesn't really pop up like that, and in fact tends to shrink, the finished yarn is going to be thinner than it looks like it will be. Like when I two-ply cotton thread, what I find is almost the same diameter as this was, which is really not. That's not. I wanted to spin double. Typically a very fluffy wool at that. For whatever reason, I started off with incredible. This is going very badly. So I see what can be done. Try sort of drafting it. It's thinner than I want it to be, though. I don't really know. I haven't practiced this sort of long draw technique much at all. I know I can't go proper long draw. It's my shoulders are super messed up, and I just proper long draw basically has you drafting arm, or I don't know, the arm holding the fiber. It has you moving a wide arc that way. I really can't do that. So the best I can do is kind of approximate parts of it, which means I don't really understand how to control the size. I would assume this would be the amount of twist that you have to it, but that doesn't seem to be working. It's quite puzzling, that's for sure. It's quite difficult. I've realized in the last couple of weeks that I'm a very slow learner when it comes to fiber arts. And I think I didn't have much of a frame of reference for other people. Because it's been wildly different numbers anytime I ask my friends, how long did it take you to learn how to spin flax or something? One friend might say, well, it took me 4 years, and the other friend might say, I don't know, an afternoon. So it seems sort of all over the place. But I've consistently been seeing that most people seem to pick this stuff up an awful lot quicker and easier than I do. Which was kind of a shock to me. I didn't think I was I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm bad at spinning. I put the time in. I'm not bad at spinning. I'm bad at spinning this because I don't know how to do it. But generally speaking, I would call myself. And anytime I step out of my comfort zone to learn something, I'm very bad at it for a very long time. I anticipate that my first couple of bigger cottons I wasn't anticipating that before I started spinning. But now that I've started spinning it, that's when I'm anticipating. But I think I have some hope because I am easily able to spin cotton thread at this point. I can do it on the bus even. I can do it looking on the bus, and it's a really bumpy bus. So if I was able to get there on something that is arguably more difficult, easier, quicker. A bunch of dye material stuck in this. I don't know if it's dye material, it's something. It's clearly from dyeing. It's a plant. But I don't, it's not really coming out. I was thinking it would either come out with the cards once I had proper cotton cards, but it didn't come out when I was carding it, and now it's not coming out when it's carding it. So I guess we'll have to see. I don't think it will. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. The problem with this is that it runs in. How to fix it. It runs. It was a lot easier when I was doing it on my drawstring. I'm not sure if that's because a little bit more control on the drawstring, or if it was just not quite one awful. I think what I'm going to do, after I've spun one of these, switch to one of the white ones and see how that is. And the white ones are going to be perfect. My original plan was to have sort of more like different little mini schemes. I already have these colors. And I kind of just keep going with that, but I think it's sort of another one of these green ones right now. Switch to the white after this, and hopefully that will work better. The reasons that time switch was so I have to be able to consistently. I have to be able to explain it to myself in a way that I can remember, which means I have to understand it enough to be able to explain it to myself. And it takes a lot of work to get to that point. I feel like a lot of beginners in many, a lot of beginners who something, they can just sort of slowly go up the curve. Whereas I'm just like screwed every single time until I fully figured it out. And until then, it's going to be terrible. I'm not be able to do it at all. Probably just some after this. It's a little frustrating. Because if I go a long time, if I put this stuff down and I don't for a month, I'll be back at square one. So I have to like keep working at something relentlessly until I understand it. And I can't really take breaks. Then I just set okay. I don't really think that's how it works for anyone else, but for most people, it probably works about the same for other people. fine though. It's completely fine. One thing that I noticed with my cotton cards is I don't seem to be able to get any of the VM out. Like the bits of dye material, that didn't come out. The bits of crushed seeds, like cotton seeds, those didn't come out. Pretty much things only came out when I picked them out with my fingers. Otherwise, they stayed. So I'm really hoping that this ginned cotton that I bought does not have a lot of seeds. Come out. If that is the case, though, I might stick to. Damn it. Well, I got most of the way through before it snapped. Miles better than it was. 100% of the cotton. A little far, but at least I'm quicker than that. I don't remember what I was talking about. Oh, right. I've also seen another way to process cotton in spinnable form is to not process it and leave it on the seeds. I've seen some people sort of like roll the fiber pockets of it. Totally removed. I've seen people like sort of roll the fiber like off the seeds and then hold the seeds just in hand, draft off of that. And now that I'm doing this, I really understand the appeal. Because if you can't remove the seeds, like from a massive fiber, then not include them in the finished yarn. The issue is though, it seems to be easier to find ginned cotton than it does to find cotton balls. I don't know how well it will work out for me. Remove all the tension. And hopefully I should leave it on this lighter tension. No, okay. That's actually not doing any favors. It's doing favors when you attach it, but not having anything to pull against. What sort of render my expensive purchase? So here's my somewhat expensive ginned cotton purchase. That's the last resort. Try and spin all this stuff as best as I can. I think if I can figure out how to fix spin cotton on my middle, I really want to spin enough to make a cotton summer blanket out of hand spun. I made multiple cotton summer blankets out of no spun yarn, but no spun cotton just sucks. It's just terrible. And hand spun cotton is so much. So depending on how this, like my experiments wear as finished objects, depending on how difficult and time consuming it is. We may turn those 2 pounds of ginned cotton into effect, which we'll have to see. 2 pounds might not be enough though. I'm not sure. I need to weigh my summer blankets. I feel like I'm maybe getting a little bit better, but then every time I think that, I get worse again. So. I'm not positive if I would have chosen this as a stream part, it was going to be like this. But now that I've started, I will continue. Like, there's pros and cons to it. You know, the con is that I'm putting this in front of other people, and also I'm putting it on my YouTube channel. So like, it's gonna stick. That's a little embarrassing. But then the pros are that I can go back and watch this, pick apart what I'm doing wrong, and I got that can be really invaluable. So, all right, finally done with that incredibly horrible green roll back. Now we're going to move to one of the nicer roll lags. I think this might even be the very last one I did. At that point, I was doing a lot better. So, some hopes. Okay, this is like 1 billion times easier. That's insane. Well, I guess it is just the prep on that particular roll-out, or that particular thing. Just absolutely atrocious. This is much more obliging, which is very relieving. It's still difficult to make it stay like fairly thick. That is always a difficulty with cotton, and also just a difficulty in general once you can spin. The yarn always just sort of tends to get thinner. For me and for long-term spinner. So hands really want this to be a very thin yarn, and my brain is not. So there's sort of some confusion. But yeah, either way, the prep is so much better. So I think this is going to be doable, so long as it's durable enough to be worth making a blanket out of. That, of course, remains to be seen. Even so, I am getting some slubs. I will say that this particular thing is not as rigid as some of the other ones were, because I didn't put it up very much. I was running out of fiber at that point. So I don't think that's doing me any favors, but it is, like, the fiber itself is mostly free of lumps, unlike the green one that I just spun. So it helps. It's still not easy, but it's easier. Let's get smoke. I really feel like the long draw method is the way to go. I have to finish. I have to figure out how to actually draw. Or it'll work. Tell if she smells another animal out there, or if she's trying to escape, or wanting to escape anyway. It's very unclear. really showed me how even it actually is. And that's what I need to work on. But the problem is the other two schemes that I have are too Plying, and I really would like to make a project with all of it. And I just don't know if I can get behind mixing 2 and 3 ply like that. That's not something I usually do. It took me a really long time to get to the point where I was comfortable mixing different breeds of wool. And I still don't understand what my hang up was there. Like, logically, it really doesn't matter. I mean, like, yeah, each fleece is going to have its own characteristics. That can cause some confusion if you don't like blend it well. But if you do blend it well, it doesn't actually matter. And especially if you're working with finished yarns, where you already know how they're gonna, like whether or not they're gonna puff up a lot, and how they're gonna wear. Why does it matter? But it did matter massively for a very long time. It's only recently that I've like been able to just, like fuck it. It truly does not impact anything at all. I've made some nice projects since figuring that out. I know it's not just me. It seems to only be like when you're working with fleece, like when you're the kind of spinner who works a lot with fleeces, rather than with like verbatim or other pre-prepared fibers that are often blended. Like when you have a fleece, it's just that one animal. That one animal's fleece is going to be in a very particular way. Like I was at the point for a while where I wouldn't even consider mixing 2 fleeces from the same, from different years, because they do change year to year, sometimes quite drastically. I wouldn't even do that. Like that was too much. It was each fleece was its own project or a series of smaller projects, and if I needed something that called for more fleece, it's just how I operated for several years. Of course, now that I've gotten rid of that hang up, I have other more stupid hang ups. Just the way it is. I had a lot of coconut water for it before. You should have seen that coming. I don't think she's gonna look it up. I just feel like coconuts are not appealing to cats. But I was gonna drink that. So. We're gonna go back to the green. Whether it cooperates. Because I think if this one cooperates, then it's quite possible that I was working with that one that I rolled the other way. And that's going to be the final nail in the coffin for trying to roll it the other way. So. I mean, it's not easy, but it is not as bad as that first one. So, I'm going to hazard a guess that first one was the one that I rolled the other way. Wow, we're about an hour in, and I've only spun 2 and a bit roll backs. 2 and a bit doing this up. My 6 that I have, as well as, of course, full yarn. But I actually might not finish all of this tonight. I was planning on it, I only have about an hour and a half at most. Kind of less now that I need to clean up. So I might just finish spinning this rollback, and then we'll get back to it on the next stream, probably tomorrow. And hopefully the other cotton has come in by then, so I can test that too. I really want to test that cotton. I want to see, like, you know, what the staple length is like, how soft it is, how many seed pods are still in there. I'm just going to finish this one up, and then I'll head out for the night. Maybe I'll try 3 plying the next batch, because I do want to practice. Like, I want to see what it's like when I'm not sort of using 2-ply as a crutch to get better consistency. And I also want to see what thick 3-ply cotton is like, and what chain plying is like. I've never really had enough cotton that was of good enough quality to run these experiments, and I've never had my own cotton carders, although I've learned stuff from other people a fair few times. I just never had them long enough to. It's all quite new. I was so smart. Putting that cup on top of an ice pack, and then putting that on top of a container of flour. To be within reach, and stay cool because it's sitting on an ice pack. That was true, but that I already have. I'm not dropping things. I'm putting it in a precarious situation. Probably was not smart. But the ice pack did keep it cool for the time, so we'll keep trying with that. You can just water next time. I really hope coconut water isn't sticky. I don't think I've ever spilled as much of it before. I don't have a mop. The thing about this, like, dye material is that you can't even really pick it out with your fingers. It's sort of embedded in the fibers and then the two. But like brushing it off does not work. Picking it off does not really work. It just messes it up perhaps further. So I clearly need to be pretty again to make sure that there's absolutely no dye material left in the bottle. With wool, it doesn't really matter. Like, you're probably going to be picking out a small amount of VM, even on a good fleece. So adding a tiny bit more to that, that's fairly easy to remove. That's not been a problem. This is a problem. So. get a grip on it. It's still not going out without destroying. So when I get down to the end of this, and I reach a part with a worse prep, which is often true of the ends, relax into it. It's suddenly much more obvious. So that does tell me that prep really, really matters. Which I already knew, but so, my wheel. I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea how much detail you can really see, but it's not even. But it could be worse. So I'm calling that a success. I think I got it more comfortable by the end. Hopefully, I'll remember everything that we learned again tomorrow. Still have these to go. Oh, jump. Yeah, okay, I'm done. All right. Well, thanks for watching the stream. I hope you have a good night. I'm gonna go to bed. And I'll probably see you tomorrow.